The biggest poison in us is regret.
Bad decisions, hasty decisions, too fast, and affects the next 20 years of your life because you made the wrong decision. What makes us make these fast decisions? Fear?
Let the fear of regret fuel you to take action today, now.
Be the best. Lifelong personal development requires tremendous dedication, discipline, and willpower. It is often the case that we know what we need to do, but we lack the courage to take the risks. Instead, we make excuses for inaction.
When people can walk away from you, let them walk. When people can walk away from you, let them walk.
The great thing about excuses is that no matter what happens, excuses are always there waiting to be used. But the downside of excuses is that nobody really believes them. If you make excuses, they're going to know it and they're going to think less of you. But if you refuse to rely on excuses, people are going to know that too, and they'll admire you for it.
You need large amounts of self-discipline to deal courageously with all the fear-inducing events of your life. Courage is rightly considered the foremost of the virtues, for upon it all others depend. Often, fear is necessary to preserve life, prevent injury, and guard against financial mistakes.
I don't want you to try to talk another person into staying with you, loving you, calling you, caring about you, coming to see you, staying attached to you. I mean, hang up the phone. When people can walk away from you, let them walk.
If you ask people what they regret, especially as they get older, what they generally report is things not done. So they don't regret so much mistakes they've made, although of course people obviously regret mistakes they've made as well. So they don't exactly regret sins of commission, right? Errors that they've actively made. They torment themselves for opportunities that had presented themselves that they did not, let's say, exploit or engage in.
The regret we feel for things that we've done, though intent, only lasts a short period of time. But the regret that we feel for things that we missed out on, that can extend throughout a lifetime. Because most of us are scared, and we choose to lead an easy life. And by doing so, we start to rack up those regrets. But there is a solution. You have to be willing to be bold.
You have a great life in front of you, but your great life is in front of you. It's not behind you. What you did back there ain't got nothing to do with what God got for you. What you did back there was learn the lessons to get you to where you are at this particular moment right here.
Bad decisions, hasty decisions, too fast, and affects the next 20 years of your life because you made the wrong decision. If you'd have just waited, got all your information together, settled yourself, you'd have been better. What makes us make these fast decisions? Fear?
It takes discipline to face your fears so you can conquer them. And that's what discipline is. Discipline means taking the hard road, the uphill road, to do what's right. And regret, in and of itself, it's worthless. So learn and move on.
There are moments that try the human soul so violently and so perplexing that if the truth were told, all of us have had moments that we wanted to throw up our hands and walk away. Particularly painful is discouragement in the life of the believer, because as we travel from season to season, it is not just the perils that we face, but it is seeing the wicked go forward while the righteous are held back. Discouragement can creep in secretly, hide behind clothes, makeup, hairdos. Discouragement is so bold that it will even hide behind a smile. It will always ride to work with you, and if it doesn't catch a ride going to work, it'll catch a ride on the way back home. Discouragement will go into a tent. It will walk right into a Section 8 neighborhood. But don't think that it stops Discouragement will walk right into a middle-class house. It won't just stop there. It'll go in a mansion. And tell you life is not worth living. If you listen at discouragement, it will cause you to make bad decisions. It will cause you to think that life is not worth living. And secretly, behind the facade of a smile and a good morning and a praise the Lord and a how are you, you will wonder if you're ever going to get out of what you're into.
One of the things that we know about life is that it is always changing. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. Sometimes you're happy, and sometimes you're sad. Now that's that thing called life. And when we begin to understand and know that, accepting that reality, that we will never ever have things just on an even keel all the time, that you're going to have some ups and you're going to have some downs. But during those down moments, that's where the growth takes place. That's where the work is. Anybody can feel good when they have their health, their bills are paid, they have happy relationships, the children are acting normal, business is successful. Anybody could be positive then. Anybody can have faith under those kinds of circumstances. See, but the real challenge of growth, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, comes when you get knocked down. Adversity introduces a man to himself or a woman. How you handle it, that's where the growth takes place.
The ability to learn to say no and not to feel guilty about it, to me, is about the greatest success I have achieved. It's all a part of a process for growing for me. To me, to have the kind of internal strength and internal courage it takes to say, no, I will not let you treat me this way, is what success is all about. I will not be treated this way. I demand only the best for myself.
As you might imagine, I don't think we should spend a lot of time regretting the choices we've made in the past. To spend time brooding over how things went, that's an illusion. What you're doing is suffering pointlessly in the present under the shadow of certain memories. You're telling yourself a story about something that might have been over and over again. How long do you want to do that for?
And sometimes life is going to knock you down. But because you have been knocked down don't mean that you are finished. No. You got some reasons. It might be your own sense of pride and determination in the kind of life that you want to create.
There are people in their 30s and 40s who are still acting like adolescents. And there are even people in their 40s and 50s who are still acting like babies as far as their attitude toward responsibility is concerned. But the large number of people who shirk responsibility can also provide opportunities for you if you are determined to be different. If you decide to be one of the few who embraces responsibility, you can lead, and you will deserve to lead. Churchill said responsibility is the price of greatness. And in my opinion, it's really a rather small price to pay. It means, first of all, that you accept the consequences of your actions. Responsibility means you look to yourself as the source of everything that happens to you. It means that you assume command, regardless of the hardships you may have undergone early in life, or the dozens of people who may have failed to understand you. I'm saying that regardless of the presence of those negative influences in your life, the best thing you can do, the strongest thing, the most empowering thing, and ultimately the wisest thing, is to accept responsibility for your own destiny, plain and simple. If you have enough reasons, you can do the most incredible things. Here's what you might be lacking: a long enough list of reasons. Reasons that drive you, reasons that get you up a little extra early, reasons that keep you up a little extra late. That's what makes the difference.
You should always make decisions with your heart and soul. You can use your brain for math, but when it comes to the actual feel of the decision, you always want to go inward and check it against your heart and soul. Here's the simple test. Does the decision that you're about to make expand you, expand your future, or expand the possibilities of your life? If the answer is yes, then the decision is yes, no matter how terrifying it is.
Other than death, all failure is psychological. Other than death, all failure is psychological. Does not mean that you won't lose some battles, because you will. We all will. But it does mean that as long as you don't surrender, as long as you don't quit, then you haven't failed.
Here are some action exercises that you can do. Make a decision today to invest in yourself and getting better, as if your future depends on it, because it does. Identify the most important skills you have that determine the quality and quantity of results you get at your work, and make a plan to get better in each one. Set excellent performance in your work as a goal, and then determine exactly what you will need to do every day to join the top 20% or better in your field.
Sometimes I see people succeeding who didn't pray nearly as hard, work nearly as long, and it seems like they seemingly have moments of victory in close proximity so I could see it. Not while I am having a similar experience, but while all hell has broken loose in my life and I am going through agony and tragedy, seemingly they are having victory and triumph. And if you are not careful, the very sight of their prosperity becomes your agony. And seeing them go forward will be a source of such continued frustration that it is not your test that baffles you, but their success agonizingly displayed before you makes you despair of life, until David says in 37:1, fret not thyself over evildoers, how they prosper in their own way, they shall soon be cut off. He says, in other words, don't make a permanent decision over a temporary circumstance. He says, don't allow a moment of agony to make you draw a conclusion about life prematurely.
I was going through a major challenge in my life that was wearing me out, that was using me. And one of my students told me in a class that I was teaching, Lessons in Truth, she said, Les, until you handle it with grace, it will stay in your face. And it stayed there a long time. Are you going through it, or are you growing through it? Are you bigger and better because of it? Because it's not going to leave you until you grow through it. Are you learning anything, or are you doing it over and over and over again? Insanity is doing the same thing in the same way, expecting a different outcome. The biggest challenge is to know what's happening. This is a part of this thing we call life. This too shall pass. And maintaining perspective, putting it in perspective. How do we get stuck? A friend of mine working on a job, loved the company very much, expected to retire there. And one day they called him in the office, asked him for his badge and identification, told him he was fired and he had to leave then. He was devastated. And if you came anywhere near him, he would tell you his story, as we all have stories. Even when he got a job, he went on the job telling anybody who would listen how they fired him unjustly. And he always ended with, it wasn't fair. Life isn't fair. It's not fair that birds eat worms, and they do.
Don't deviate, don't procrastinate, don't become frustrated. All you have to do to win this battle is stay on track.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
I fought a good fight. I fought for my kids, and I fought for what was right, and I fought for my good health, and I fought for a good career that would bless my family. I fought a good fight. The encroachment Opposites are in conflict, and we're in the middle. And if you want something valuable, you got to fight for it.
You have comeback power when something happens to you. Don't buy into what has happened to you. Buy into, I'm getting up out of here. I'm going to change this situation. This does not work for me, and I don't have the luxury of being depressed. I need to clear my head.
Yes, we can see avoidance of responsibility all the time in both our personal and professional lives. We can see that most people aren't as successful as they wish they were. Do you see there's a connection between these two very common phenomena? I hope you'll understand that it's in your best interests to take responsibility for everything you do. But that's only the beginning. I'm also going to suggest that many times it's even best to accept responsibility for the mistakes of others, especially when you're in a managerial or leadership role.
What do you do when you tried and failed and you want to quit and you want to give up? Sometimes you can be blessed and be unhappy because even though things are going right, they're not going according to what you had believed and expected, and you know that something is missing out of your life.
You got to clear your head so that the decision that you make represents the best in you. Be still and know that you're going to get through this. You're going to get through this. You got to assure yourself. You have to encourage yourself. You have to clear your mind.
The great thing about excuses, and the really dangerous thing about them, is that no matter what happens, excuses are always there waiting to be used. But the downside of excuses, even good ones, is that nobody really believes them. If you make excuses, they're going to know it, and they're going to think less of you. But if you refuse to rely on excuses, people are going to know that too, and they'll admire you for it. This is especially true in business. One of the classic examples happened about 15 years ago. A widely advertised healthcare product from a leading manufacturer was shown to be unsafe, and the company responded by pulling every single box off the shelves at a cost of millions of dollars. Was the company destroyed? Hardly. If they had done anything else, there would have been a tremendous loss of confidence. Instead, there was honest acceptance of responsibility for a mistake. Contrast this with what happened recently to a leading manufacturer of computer chips. When a new microprocessor didn't perform up to expectations, the company made excuses. It was a minor problem, something that would crop up once in a lifetime, and so forth. Were these excuses valid? Maybe, maybe not. But it doesn't really matter, does it? So many people use excuses, but nobody really buys them. That accepting responsibility is one of the highest forms of human maturity. To put yourself on the line, a willingness to be accountable, is really the defining characteristic of adulthood. Anyone who has raised children knows how true this is. Just look at a baby during the first few years of life. Every facial expression, every tentative word has one message for the baby's parents. I am totally dependent on you. I can't be held responsible for the consequences. I can't do anything for myself even if I try. After all, I'm just a baby. 10 or 12 years later, of course, as the boy or girl enters adolescence, this message to the parents will be very different. It will sound something like this: I want to be totally independent. Why don't you just leave me alone? I don't want to do anything but think about myself. I certainly don't want to accept any responsibility. It's only when we're at last grown up that the first two messages, I'm totally independent of you and I'm totally dependent on you, finally turn into you can depend on me, which is the truly adult outlook.
The night seasons are not the end. The bad breaks, the disappointments, that's simply another step on the way to your destiny.
But let me tell you what ought to cause great joy to come to your life is if you'd stop comparing yourself to other people and you would just remember where you came from and remember where you started. You're doing more. You're seeing more. You're achieving more. But if you start comparing yourself with someone else, you can get discouraged because they're doing more maybe than you're doing.
Sooner or later, all of us face situations in which we must decide whether to accept responsibility for a problem or look for ways to avoid responsibility. Let's look at the various options and decisions that are now open to you. First, there's the role played by intention. In other words, was the outcome of your action what you intended it to be? And if it was not, should you still accept responsibility for that outcome? This is a very serious issue in the way we think about responsibility. In many areas of criminal law, for instance, the intention to commit a crime must be present in order for the accused to be held criminally responsible. This intention is something quite different from mere negligence. But we don't have to enter a courtroom to see the important role intention plays in accepting responsibility ourselves or assigning it to others. Don't you remember when you were a kid and you left the screen door open so that the cat ran outside and was lost all afternoon? What did you say to avoid responsibility? You said, it was an accident. You said, I didn't mean to do that. As I pointed out earlier, there are lots of people who still use these childlike rationalizations well into their middle age. But if and when you decide you want to be an adult, you begin to see the whole question of intention as nothing more than another opportunity for excuse making, and you should refuse to participate in it.
If you get beat, unless you're dead, you are not defeated, and you have not failed. What you've done is you've learned. You've gained experience, and you're still alive. So get up and go get after it.
Tonight, I don't know where you're at on this journey. And I don't know what life looks like for you right now. But I know this, if you're ever gonna be who God's called you to be, it's gonna require confidence. And if you've lost it, you gotta find it. And if you've misplaced it, you gotta get it back.
You have to set your face. The people that need to be for you will be for you. People that will celebrate you. People that will cheer you on. People that stick with you through thick and thin. But too often, we're trying to convince people to be our friend, convince them to spend time with us. But if someone doesn't see the gift that you are, if they don't recognize your talents, value your friendship, do yourself a favor and move on. No offense, but they are not a part of your destiny.
You're not the nut you used to be, but you're not the tree you're gonna be. But until you learn how to appreciate where you are in the process, you won't get the power to evolve to your ultimate destiny.
When you do discover a cause worth dying for, and you do realize it's worth living for, how many know it's worth giving for, it's worth working for, it's worth sacrificing for? But what I've learned is that if you don't have confidence, you'll never walk out your cause.
You're so busy starving the sapling trying to get to the tree that you cancel out the potential of being a tree because you don't feed where you are. You're in love with tomorrow, but you're neglecting today. Until you are faithful over the few, you cannot be ruler over the many. So you need to take your eye off of the tree and water what you got now.
You're gonna get what you focus on. What you focus on gets larger and larger in your life. It grows. It's like if you look at what's wrong with your life, you can actually get to the point where you just hate your life. And you think that you've got the worst life ever, when really somebody else might look at your life and they might actually wish they had your life. because they're seeing the stuff that you quit looking at a long time ago because you're so busy looking at all the stuff you don't like, you've forgotten what you do like. You might marry somebody and you might get so focused on what you don't like that you forgot what you liked about them that caused you to want to marry them to start with.
Go ahead and work on your level. Go ahead and master where you are. And after a while, without you even trying to do it, where you started will turn into where you're going. That's what destiny is pulling you into. From the rehearsal to the recital, once you have mastered it, whether the recital is business, marriage, accounting firms, real estate development, family, whatever your recital is, once you have maximized it, you get to sit with the masters.
So the key to your life is finding a vision that imposes discipline on you. In essence, vision is the source of discipline. Discipline is the root of leadership. It actually is the very nature that attracts people to you. A disciplined person naturally begins to attract people because people admire discipline in other people. That's why we go to see athletes perform. We really admire their discipline that they put themselves through. If you do the same thing as a person, people will then begin to believe what you say. Your very life of discipline creates trust. People trust a person who they perceive to be disciplined.
There's a lot of destruction going on in the world right now. There's a lot of loss happening in the world right now. And I've actually been through a lot of chaos, and I've been through a lot of destruction. And one thing that I've learned is I learned that I had to keep my emotions in check. And that's the same thing I tell other people when they're going through trying times. And that does not mean that you're not going to have emotions. But by keeping your emotions in check, I mean don't make decisions based on your emotions. They're going to lead to a bad place. Don't let that happen. Instead, if you feel yourself getting emotional, take a step back. Detach. Look around. Think about the long-term implications of the decisions that you're making, and make your decisions based on logic and based on reason and based on long-term outcomes.
No matter what happens to you, it ain't over. Ain't no such a thing as over. As long as God wakes you up, that means he ain't through with you yet. And if he wakes you up, you got a shot to correct it and get it right. That also means that he has something for you that you've yet to receive. So as long as he was waking me up, I figure what else? He can't take nothing else from me. I ain't got nowhere to stay, so.
That if you want it, you got to go get it. Some of y'all got this concept of what you want. You know, some of y'all are motivated by broke. Just wanting to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. Other folks are motivated by materialistic things. It's a very simple concept. If you want it, you got to go get it.
You've got creativeness in you. If you decide to take the initiative to change the current quality of your life, I say to you that you will find that the universe is on your side. Now, will it be turbulent? Yes. Will it be easy? No, no. Will I make a lot of mistakes? Yes. See, a lot of people won't try anything different in life because they don't want to get hurt.
But too often, we're trying to convince people to be our friend. And if someone doesn't see the gift that you are, if they don't recognize your talents, value your friendship, do yourself a favor and move on. No offense, but they are not a part of your destiny. You don't have to play up to people, let them manipulate you. No, the people God has for you don't have to be talked into liking you.
If you're weary with smallness and you're tired all the time and you can't focus, what are you going to do with greatness? You're asking for more and you haven't mastered less.
The older we get, the more we realize we're not going to be here forever. Life is flying by. When you realize how fast time is going, it should bring a sense of urgency, a sense of focus. Your assignment has an expiration date. Your time on this earth is not unlimited. Don't go through life trying to please everyone. If you try to keep every person happy, the one person that won't be happy is you. Come out from under that debt. Be nice, go the extra mile, but don't be a people pleaser.
You have to understand why you're going through the period that's causing you to make you want to give up. The devil has one mission, is to rob you of your destiny. If he can get you to give up, you have been robbed of your destiny. If he gets you to never follow your dream, he robs you of your destiny. You got to get focused, man. You got to understand that this hard time that you're going through, everything you're going through is preparing you for what you ask God for. Every trial and tribulation you go through prepares you for the life God has for you.
And in order for you to say yes to some things, you got to say no to a lot of other things. Where you end up depends upon which road you take. Where you end up in eternity will be determined by the road you take here on earth. What you do while you are in this world will determine forever where you spend forever.
Everything you ever thought you would not make it through, you got past it. Now, if you're currently going through something right now, guess what? You're going to get past that too. It always works that way. You always do.
Everything that happens to you in your life, whether it's a trauma, whether it's a disease, whether it's somebody treating you in a certain way, there's a lesson in all of it. No limit people understand the lesson in life and therefore celebrate the lessons.
See, a lot of times we allow ourselves to be fed and to be programmed and to being afraid of. You watch the news and read the newspaper, you'll be scared to come out the house. So what kinds of things, what kinds of thoughts are you feeding your consciousness? What kind of things are you putting in your mind that will enable you to either move forward or to justify why you're staying where you are?
We have many areas to improve on. In every area we need to learn. We are not the greatest. We need to grow. We need to expand. And I'm not talking about numbers. I want to make sure we're really clear about that. I'm not talking about numbers at all. I'm talking about within. Some of you, you need to grow from within. Growing is not the mission. Growing is not the goal. Us being healthy, that's the goal. And it just turns out that healthy things grow.
And my point to you is if you don't have a goal, if you don't have something that keeps you sharp and focused, if you don't have challenges, you won't stay alive. You could drop into a pile of dust pretty quick if you don't have any. I don't care how old you are. I don't care who you are. You need a dream.
Some people won't understand you. They'll get upset when you break out of the box. Someone told me, Joel, you've forgotten where we've come from. I thought I haven't forgotten. I just didn't want to stay there. Don't get stuck in the past. Don't get stuck in tradition.
And when you get to that point in your life where you're not cursing the things that come your way and blaming the things that come your way, and particularly blaming it on somebody else, and you hear it all the time. She hurt my feelings. How's that possible? How can anybody hurt your feelings? Your feelings come from your thoughts. No one can hurt your feelings without your consent. No one can embarrass you without your consent. These are choices that you have that come from the way that you think.
You got to get focused, man. You got to understand that this hard time that you're going through is preparing you for what you ask God for. Every trial and tribulation you go through prepares you for the life God has for you.
What do you think about? What is your dream? Do you want a larger life? and that you're going to get a breakthrough, that things are going to be better for you, that you're willing to work on you. You're learning how to live life now.
It was my philosophy that changed. The set of the sail of better thinking, correcting the errors of the past and picking up new disciplines for the future. That's all I had to do at the end of the first 6. And my total life changed. The second 6 years was totally different than the first 6 of my working life.
If you're stuck in a story. There's a story you're telling yourself that doesn't serve you anymore. And you have to evaluate what that story is. But what you need to do is you need to alter your associations. You need to do something in a short window of time, no question about it. You definitely need to evaluate what is no longer needed and evaluate the story you're telling yourself.
What's your philosophy of life? What are your beliefs, things that you feel very strongly about? What are some of the things that you have picked up along the way that you've been doing them for so long you think that they're you, that you need to begin to re-examine them and perhaps get them out of your life? See, a lot of things we're doing, we do unconsciously because we picked it up somewhere in life.
You have to have a boldness to follow what God's put in your heart. You can't worry about what everybody else thinks. If someone gets offended because you're not taking their advice, that's not your problem. If you live by the opinion of others, you will never become who you were created to be, because people will try to keep you in their box, in who they want you to be.
I am going to be curious about myself. I am going to make it my mission every day to wake up and discover a new version of me. I'm going to make it my mission to explore the corners, the far corners of myself, just to see what's there, because I want to know what else is in me. You know, you've got to be curious about yourself. And that's the attitude to have if you want to get more out of this life.
I used to try to change everything. You can hang apples on a pear tree. I'm telling you, it won't help. You can put up a sign, this is an apple tree. Sure enough, come the season, pears. Here's what I learned. You cannot change people, but they can change themselves. It's your skills that buy you a future. Money and no skills, and I'm telling you, you're still poor. Money and no courage, you're broke.
You know your strengths. You know your dreams. You know your heart. So why don't you sit down and reflect for a moment and ask yourself, what do I really want to accomplish that I haven't accomplished yet? Get in your area, in your space, and say, I need to challenge me, because here's what I feel and here's what I believe. When you challenge yourself, you're challenging yourself in an area that is close to your heart, and it's who you are.
Accept the challenge, because you can't grow without a challenge. You can't get rich without a challenge. You have to understand the challenge. But that's the key, is to now develop wisdom to overcome the challenge. Don't wish for less challenge, but more wisdom. You can do the most remarkable things no matter what happens. Humans can do the most remarkable things no matter what happens.
Just being aware of the concept will put you light years ahead of 99.9% of people. Just awareness of the power of identity. Just now you knowing about the thermostat puts you in the 0.1% of all the people on the spinning earth right now.
There are three kinds of people. There are people who make things happen, people that watch things happen, and people that don't know what happened. That's the majority. Hoping that somebody with mercy and pity will look in their direction. No! Hey, listen here. You've been given authority and dominion over everything on the face of the earth. Listen to me. Be willing to learn something. Keep moving in the direction of where you want to go. Continue to fall forward.
One of the things I'm suggesting you look at, what is it that you need to be in the process of doing more of or less of? Like being more direct, saying no without feeling guilty, more focused. 1 year I decided to do one thing well. I looked at all of my talents and I decided the strongest one, my ability as a speaker, that's the one I'm going to focus on. But only when I decided to focus did I begin to reap the rewards of my talent.
As we get older as persons and as businesses, we have a tendency to want to cling to the old, to be suspicious of anything new and exciting. This is a successful way of doing things. Let's stay with it. Let's hang on to what we've got and ride out a future we can't be sure of. But this attitude, in many ways, can only lead to decline and eventual failure. This is a turning of the back to life, and it's something life won't stand for. To grow, we must let go.
See, when you get to a certain place, when you're willing to risk, you're not willing to risk, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you can't become your best. And if you can't become your best, you can't be happy. And if you can't be happy, what else is there? Yet many of you have been working on jobs. That is not you. Why do you do it? Oh, to pay the bills. But you've gotten to a point where that's not enough.
People telling you, hey, you can't do this, that doesn't matter. You have no idea what's possible for you, and because you don't even know what's possible for you, they have no clue what's possible for you. So you've got to keep going and keep pushing. There's some pain involved, but you got to go past the pain, and I'm telling you what's on the other end is more rewarding than anything you can think about right now. All right? So you got to go in there, take that attitude with you. This might be the day. This might be the day.
Ask yourself truthfully, your big goals and dreams, are you really clear on what they are? Because if you don't have that, we can't even get started. You know how mandatory it is to be clear and specific for what you want, right? Can you get laser obsessively focused almost to its exclusivity, almost, but for an extended period of time?